I bought my house, but I wasn't there when Katrina happened, and Coco came to Woodstock. So he was really the first real New Orleanian that, we have a daughter that lived here and a son-in-law or ex-son-in-law that teaches at UNO that grew up here, but you know, I hadn't been here that long. And Coco shows up, and you couldn't get much more New Orleans than Coco. And you know, so I was hanging out with him because he was my New Orleans connection. And then I talked to my daughter, and she goes, "Well, Coco burned down my friend's apartment." Yeah. Then I get down here and I found out what Coco Ribichaux means, which, I don't know, does everybody know what? Okay, if you're Cajun, Coco Ribichaux is like, Mom comes home, the cookie jar's broken in the middle of the floor, the cookies are all gone. She goes, "Okay, who got into the cookies?" And the kids are all lined up, and they go, "Not me, not me, not me, not me, not me." And then she goes, "Well, Coco Ribichaux must have done it." So he's the guy that does all the mischief that nobody will admit to. And, you know, I didn't even know that until I got down here. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, and...
I did a show with him one time, and he was sitting next to me.
But then I'm thinking, like, people that don't live here, that don't know who Coco is, who don't know what WWOZ is, or like when, what's his name, he plays DJ Davis. What's his name? Steve, right. Steve's like in his apartment, and he hears the band out the window, and he goes, that's, you know, the name of the band, but it's like Rebirth. That's Rebirth. I'm thinking, well, you know, people that don't live here don't know, you know, what he's talking about. But he did say Rebirth. But, you know, I mean, there was a lot of references, especially in the first episode, that were, if you didn't live here, I don't know what you'd think.
What were you saying?
No, the moment's gone. It's fine. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I apologize for interrupting.
No, I want to hear what you had to
No,
say.
it's interesting. I was doing a show with Coco one time, and I was sitting next to him in between, and he told me his real name was Leonard Arsenault.
What is it?
Leonard Arsenault is what he told me. That's a long time ago. So I knew that wasn't his name. But,
Leonard.
Leonard Arsenault, which is a good Cajun name as well.
Yeah, that's Arsenault.
There's nothing wrong with that one.
Definitely.
So are you a musician?
No, I'm a comedian. But and I you know, I haven't seen Treme at all. And once it started, I didn't see it the first couple of episodes. I learned to see it in toto. So I'm finally going to get around to it. Actually, it's on my agenda now this month.
They have it at the library. You can get season 1, and they'll be getting season 2. So you should probably sign up for it now, because there'll probably be 100 people ahead of you.
That was a little blockbuster. That's good. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
and,
you could do that too. And
so I mean, so any viewpoints that I would have on it would be just almost conjecture or just different things. You know, I'm generationally New Orleanian, from way back. So I'm interested. That's why I came over to hear other people's.
Well, if you knew Coco, you would love that episode. I think it's episode 3, maybe?
I think we've got some potential scholars for you. People that can quote the individual episode or so far.
I mean, once season 3 happens, I mean, I'd be very, very interested to hear what people have to say. I mean, this has been a kind of an ongoing study for me, is, what locals think of the program. And
I think I'd like to be John Simon and just get to hang out with all my favorite people and do whatever I wanted. It would be so hot.
Well, I think that may be what he's doing.
It is what he's doing. Definitely.
That may be why I don't particularly care for the show, because I just find it very inauthentic. I mean, I'm delighted to hear people sort of have these connections to it that you can identify, but if you were not living in New Orleans and were watching this in some other city and trying to make a judgment about what New Orleans is from the show, I think you have no way of.
Well, that's what worries me about it.
I just think it's not authentic at all. I think it's industrial. I think it's Hollywood on the river. on the Mississippi River with, not dancing, but lots of music. So you would think it's music 24/7 here, and
Right.
There
It's
is.
not-
well, yeah,
Not for
right,
everybody.
not the whole city.
Not for everybody.
Not
for-
everywhere, but.
Not for
Yeah, I
most
was
people.
gonna say, for some
Not for
people,
most
for some
people.
people it is. It's not necessarily for me. I
For
was
some
speaking with
people
my-
it is, yeah.
Right, I was speaking with my dad, who was a lot older than me and also born and raised here, and he couldn't relate to the show at all. And I found it interesting, and a lot of people who maybe come to New Orleans, whether it's before or after the storm, can really relate to the show. More so than people who were born and raised here. I found that interesting. I can kind of relate to it because I think the generation that really enjoys Katrina, not no generation, that really enjoys Treme, is not my dad's generation. But also, one thing I do enjoy about
your dad?
He must be
Our
my
age.
my age is all I'm sure
He's
of.
not saying.
Yeah, and I don't mean it like that, but
Yeah.
I feel like it.
He loves his dad.
I don't know, it's transgenerational, and I do love my dad. But one thing that I do enjoy about the show that maybe somebody from New Orleans might not pick up on is there's a lot of stuff that you go out and see and experience like every day of the week that all of a sudden you see is on tape like forever. You know what I'm saying? Like it's really cool stuff that you can't really explain, like you can't articulate it, but it's right there and you can enjoy it whenever you want. If you're not here, like what you said with people who are displaced, maybe they do, maybe they don't get to feel like they're home when they're not home, but it's cool to see that kind of stuff with the spotlight shined on it, because it really is great. And if you have a friend, I've got a good friend of mine who hasn't been able to make it here yet, and she just watched season 1 and loved it, and we'll be here soon. And I can appreciate that because she knows how much I care about the city, and she also cares about it like through me.
I think it's really interesting what Treme does in terms of like an overall history of New Orleans, because I'm from Mississippi, and growing up northeast Mississippi, New Orleans meant like, well, that's where Mardi Gras is, But then it also, when I was even younger, well, that's where the World's Fair. My grandparents came down to the '84 World's Fair. Huge atrocity, right? But then I watched this travelogue on YouTube recently. It's one of the things they used to show in movie houses, between movies. New Orleans 1940. Completely different, take, not a popular one. It's always, good to romanticize Storyville or all of this stuff, and then it just jumps ahead and suddenly it's like Mardi Gras, New Orleans, Mardi Gras. But this travelogue really depicts New Orleans in this metropolis, third largest city in the country kind of thing, just wholly different. And I think that, obviously, interesting stuff comes from tragedy, and post-Katrina, you have things like Treme and all these, Hollywood trucks showing up. I think New Orleans has this real interesting way of being, making the most out of all these layers where they merge together, not becoming a homogenous place like other cities. Like New York, I was just living in New York recently, and, it's like money and just the rapid movement of what happens there almost erases everything that was there even in the 80s, it's just romanticized in movies and books and the people that have rent control in East Village that haven't died yet. And it's true, that's the reason they don't leave. They're like, I can't. But they're miserable. It's like they're in prison, all these condos and Pinkberry yogurt places around them, and nothing that they were familiar with is there. It's just ghostly in that way. But New Orleans, you have everything's underwater, and it's still somehow all relevant here. And then I think this, the movie industry thing here is just this next layer. And maybe that's also kind of good to move away from the city. Like I said, me and another state's proximity, not that far away. My impression of it is, well, that's Mardi Gras. And I think it's obviously there's a lot of bad to it, but maybe it's also kind of good that it can give this next